Friends, today we have a very important topic that is about compartmentalization of cell. Now you are well aware about the cell now, and you also know that there are so many membranes in our cells or in the cells of plants and animals, which we basically call as endomembrane system. And because of this particular thing, the presence of membranes within the cell or outside the cell, what basically results result is the compartmentalization of the cell. That means the cell has broadly either cytoplasmic or nuclear compartments, right? And then individual compartments are also created. But the important thing to understand why this compartmentalization occurs in a cell. Now you know that many vital biochemical processes take place in or on the membranes or surface of a cell. For example, lipid metabolism. Where is occur? How it's catalyzed? It is mostly catalyzed by the membrane-bound enzymes, right? Or the oxidative phosphorylation or the photosynthesis. Where they occur? They occur on the membranes of the important organelles, where the transport of proton is coupled to the synthesis of ATP. So because of these, what is called as demarcated levels of metabolic activities in a cell, it is because of the compartmentalization. Another thing, understand the intracellular membrane systems. Now, do they really help the cell in performing the different structural functional aspects, or they simply increase the membrane area? No, they don't only increase the membrane area, but they enclose the various compartments or the various organelles that are later on separated from the cytosol, or they are separated from the nucleus. So because of this, what happens is that a cell is being provided with structurally and functionally specialized spaces or areas. Second thing is that as the organelles or the compartments are usually covered by a lipid bilayer membrane, which is mostly impermeable to most of the hydrophilic molecules, therefore the membrane of each organelle must contain membrane transport proteins, because we will study them later on also. When we will take the structure and function of membranes, we will come to know what is the role of membrane proteins, and it is these membrane proteins which are meant for the import and export of specific metabolites or other molecules between the different compartments of the cell. So therefore each organelle must have a mechanism in place to import or incorporate into itself the specific proteins that will be either the structural component, or they may fulfill the functional aspect of that particular cell. So that means we understand by compartmentalization in eukaryotic cell that there are intracellular membranes which basically enclose almost half the cell volume in separate intracellular compartments, which we technically name as organelles. Because later on, when we will study the organelle, we will come to know the structure and function of each organelle. But at this stage, what we are trying to understand is that it is the cell compartmentalization, or it is the intracellular compartments which are fulfilled in the first instance. Now, as you are well aware about the various organelles in the cell, right? So that is basically the compartmentalization. So the main types of membrane enclosure organelles which are present in the eukaryotic cells are क्या है? एंडोप्लाज्म रेटिकुलम है, न्यूक्लियस है, गोल्गी apparatus है, माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया है, लाइसोसोम्स है, एंडोसोम्स है, peroxomes है, or the plastids or the chloroplasts in case of the plant cells. And important thing is that each organelle, each compartment contains a distinct set of structural functional aspects that mediate its own unique structure or function. That means every compartment, every organelle is unique. For example, what is nucleus? The nucleus is the main center which contains the main genome and is the principal site of DNA and RNA synthesis, and the surrounding cytoplasm consists of the cytosol, and the cytoplasmic organelles are suspended in it. So the cytosol, which constitute a little more than half the total volume of a cell, is the site of various metabolic activities like the site of protein synthesis, like the degradation of various cellular constituents, or it can be the site where the intermediary metabolic activities of the cells are performed, or it can be the site where the building blocks for various molecules are performed. And as far as the endoplasmic reticulum is concerned, its role in the cell compartmentalization, about half of the total area of the membrane in an eukaryotic cell encloses the spaces of endoplasmic reticulum. And you also know that endoplasmic reticulum may have ribosomes bound to its surface. And that way, these are also engaged in the synthesis of various types of proteins, which are basically destined either for secretion to the cell exterior or they may be needed in the cell organelles itself. So, now when we know that now it's the protein synthesizing machinery also in the cell, so the proteins can be later on translocated to different organelles or to different compartments after their synthesis is completed, or the proteins may all remain destined within the endoplasmic reticulum only, or they may be carried to different cell compartments. So that means we need to also understand what is the mechanism in the cell which is in a position to help the cell or to help the compartments or help the organelles to receive their share of the proteins. And this thing will also we will study this thing when we will study the membrane transport and the what is called as transport of the proteins or the signals, what is called as signal hypothesis or the membrane transport within the cell, right? So another important thing you have to remember about this cell compartmentalization is that during cell division, various organelles such as AR and mitochondria, what happens to them? They are remade, resynthesized. So that means these organelles or the cell compartments contain the information that is required for their new construction. So that is not something that they will be synthesized from scratch. No, there is the origin from their precursor molecules again. So in general, each membrane enclosure organelle performs the same set of basic functions which is different from other structures or organelles or compartments of the cell, so that every organelle, every compartment is unique. But to serve the specialized functions of cells, these compartments or organelles, they share then the additional properties which basically differentiate them from other cells. So in this voice lecture, I will record only this thing and I will be recording the second voice lecture to complete the compartmentalization of the cell.